Hey guys, Buffy Game back today bringing our video, and today we're going to go a little bit in depth with some Battlefield 2042 weapons, more specifically Battlefield 3 portal weapons, that being the AN-94 or the Avtomat Nikonov model of 1994, developed by Gennadiy Nikonov, Russian designer, obviously in 1994, as to where its name was finished development in 94 by Gennadiy Nikonov. So this is a really unique rifle. Hopefully you were able to play with this back in Battlefield 3 when the game originally came out. If not, it is here in the portal. And I finally went in and picked this thing up the other day, and I was able to, over here on PS5, switch my fire controls from L to R2 for aim and fire over to L1 and R1. And I picked this thing up and just had a blast with this thing. The build here that I'll show you, and then some of the gameplay, is just amazing at hipfire and even at close ranges. The weapon itself in 2-round burst mode fires in an astonishing 1,800 rounds per minute in real life, and it appears to have that same trait in real life, or in the game here as well. So first off, if we jump into the game here, you'll see the build that I'm going to be using here. I'm going to be throwing on a PKA S 2x holographic. This has a nice clean persistent sight picture. This is a Russian holographic you can see mounted there on the dovetail mount on the right hand side of the weapon. This is one of the weapons, or the optics, that I used on all of my Russian weapons back on Battlefield 3. So it's good to see this thing back. Go ahead and throw that on. It's going to assist with the zoom level, going up to a 2x magnification. The enhanced target visibility has a really nice clean reticle on there, and the aim down sight speed will be the only con to this, but obviously it's not going to be a big con. So we'll go ahead and select that. Now for the underbarrel attachment, I've been running with the FOREGRIP. However, you also have the laser sight option here, which will help out with the hip fire accuracy, which it already has amazing hip fire even with the grip, so I wouldn't really worry about that. So the grip is what I'm running here for FOREGRIP. It's going to increase our vertical recoil control. The only con here is the hip fire accuracy, but again, like I said, the hip fire accuracy seems to be pretty amazing with this build. And then next up for the barrel option, I'm going to be running here. You'll see the heavy barrel option is what we'll test the recoil with. However, in game, I'm running the suppressor on this, and that just keeps me off the minimap as well. So you can see the heavy barrel is going to allow us to increase our range, and the con will be a vertical recoil control. The range is really what this weapon's for in real life. However, the suppressor here will keep us off the minimap. It will have a con of we'll lose range with this weapon. So that's one con there, just to keep an eye on. So if we go ahead, maybe we can see the cons here, but the suppressor for some reason is not showing. So apparently it's just showing that it has no cons, but it does reduce your distance on the weapon, the bullet velocity, and the range for the weapon as well. So just keep that in mind. But you can see the heavy barrel will be a good option to go with. However, I've been running it with a suppressor just so you can stay off the minimap here in Battlefield 3 Portal. And it seems to work really, really well. So that's our final design for the weapon. Some interesting things here before we jump in more to the gameplay. The fire control options here are in the rear above the pistol grip. If I back out here, we'll go. This might be easier to see. Unfortunately, we can't rotate the weapons yet and view them like we could in Modern Warfare or a lot of other games. Hopefully, that's a feature they add. But the fire controls for full auto, single burst are going to be right there above the pistol grip. So right before the trigger guard, top of the pistol grip there, you use your thumb on the right-hand side there, or the left-hand side, excuse me, to go ahead and modify that. And then you have the safety option there right in front of the trigger guard on the left-hand side as well. I believe that's ambidextrous, so it's right up above the magazine release. There's like a little slide that goes underneath the magazine release paddle, as well as in front of the trigger guard there. So that's one thing to keep in mind. We also have a canted magazine on this weapon, and the buttstock is foldable to the right-hand side. And here in game, we have the padded butt pad on the stock option as well, which is pretty neat. So jumping into gameplay with this weapon, you'll see this thing is just an animal. Some good occasion, I guess, good firefights here you'll see me get into, as well as close range mainly. However, if you take your time and place those 2-round bursts at ranges, it's going to be about a 2-burst kill, it looks like, even with the suppressor. If you're hitting your shots depending on where they're going to be landing. Just need to adjust for bullet drop very slightly with the suppressor. Obviously, you have the heavy barrel on there. It's not going to matter. Now, the recoil for this thing is going to be straight vertical. However, keep in mind you do have that bloom option that was, again, present in Battlefield 3 and other Battlefield games. So if you're burst firing super fast, you're gonna have that horizontal recoil as well. However, depending on the ranges, it's not going to matter. If you're close ranges, you're going to hit your target and you're going to kill them quickly. Long ranges, obviously, just don't spam that fire button and you'll go ahead and place your targets. The 2-round burst option really does stay true to real life here. It appears from my testing and puts 2 bullets in one spot, which is really good to see. Those bullets are not spread out. I remember in Modern Warfare they could vary a little bit and be spread out. You'll see that in other games. The purpose of this weapon was to place 2 bullets basically in one spot for the most part. And the cool thing about this weapon is you fire 2 rounds with the felt recoil of 1 for increased target accuracy. So the way that works with this weapon is actually extremely complicated. This may be one of the most complicated weapons ever created. And again, by Gennadiy Nikonov in 1994. This weapon is just, it's basically, if we go too in-depth of this, I'm going to give you a high-level view. Otherwise, this would be probably a 30-40 minute video. But essentially what's happening here is that the bolt is going to cycle on this weapon when you pull the trigger. And at the same time, essentially the barrel and the barrel assembly and the receiver unit are going to cycle. And that is ultimately what allows this weapon to fire 2 rounds. So how this works is the bolt will cycle twice before the barrel assembly and the receiver unit reaches the rear of the weapon, and that's going to be what causes the felt recoil. So in that time, it'll fire 2 rounds with the felt recoil of 1. And by doing that, you're going to place 2 rounds in essentially the same spot while only feeling the recoil of 1. Therefore, your sight picture won't rise, keeping those 2 rounds right on target where you're aiming initially. So the sonic brake or the muzzle device here on the weapon actually delays the recoil of the barrel assembly so the bolt can cycle twice. And how it does that is the gas system moves the bolt and the gas cycles inside of the muzzle device at the same time. So the gas system will move the bolt to the rear after you fire a round. I'm going to pull the trigger. The gas system then will move the bolt to the rear, towards the rear, and the gas cycle inside the muzzle device will start to delay that recoil of the muzzle device and the barrel assembly. Now, the bolt moves that whole gas system exchange through the muzzle device now will move the bolt to the rear of the weapon. It's going to eject that first cartridge. And now at that time, the bolt will begin to move forward. And as it's moving forward, the barrel assembly, then the gas was trapped in the muzzle device, which delayed it slightly, will start to move to the rear with the barrel assembly moving towards the rear as the bolt's cycling forward. And then the hammer will strike the second round as the bolt reaches forward. The barrel assembly is moving back, and then they're both going to move back at the same time. Hammer striking the second round. Thus, we fire 2 rounds, and as that barrel assembly reaches the rear, we have our recoil for the 2 shots. So 2 shots, 1 felt recoil. Once this happens, the bolt and the barrel assembly are both at the rear of the weapon, or the rear travel of motion, giving you that recoil. Now the magazine here is actually pretty key because we do have a canted mounted magazine on this weapon. You may have noticed in game, it may be a little bit hard to see in game, but you can see if you inspect the weapon in the menus that the magazine is canted slightly to the right several degrees. So the way this is, or the reason for this is so you can fire those 2 rounds. Because what you need to do is fire 2 rounds and load one in from the magazine, which is going to be obviously impossible the way traditional firearms work. So the way this works is 1 round is basically going to sit in a lift or a feed tray outside of the magazine. So when the weapon fires, a cable is attached to a pulley system, which is attached to the barrel assembly, which has kind of a counterbalance recoil system in it, similar to that of something like the AEK-971 or the AK-107, similar but not exact. And it'll pull that system, and what that'll do is load the second round of the feed tray, and then when that bolt starts moving or reaches the front of the weapon and the barrel assembly and everything's coming back and moves the bolt back with it, then it will fire, the hammer will strike and it'll fire that second round, or load it in the feed tray after the first round fires, and then it'll strike the second round, it loads it in, and it'll fire the weapon. So a very complicated weapon. Obviously, that's probably extremely difficult to understand, but that's essentially how it works. So a pretty, I guess, marvelous modern firearm here when you get down into the nitty-gritty of it. Now, it was originally designed to replace the AK-74. Again, they fired the same round, but that 5.5 by 39 millimeter cartridge. So this was initially intended to replace the AK-74 rifle. However, because of the complexity of the weapon and the cost associated with it, it was never really officially adopted as a main service rifle. However, it is adopted as used within special forces and different special purposes within the Russian military, mainly within Spetsnaz units. They'll run something like this. Same in line with something like the AS-Val. It's more so a special purpose rifle for the special forces and the Spetsnaz units in the Russian military. Now, the AN-94 Again, the felt recoil of 1 round for 2 rounds, pretty unique feature there. Now, it's been in service since 1997 through the present. Again, it's only really limited to Special Forces Spetsnaz units within the Russian military. It's never saw widespread use because of the complexity and the cost associated with producing just one of these rifles. Designer being Gennadiy Nikonov, and the design period took place 1980 through 1994, which is why you have that design completed in 94. That's why you have AN-94 Avtomat Nikonov model of 1994. Manufacturer was the Izhmash factory. Production 1994 through 2006. Now, the mass of this weapon is going to weigh 3.85 kilograms or 8.49 pounds. And the length overall will be 943 millimeters or 37.1 inches with the stock extended. If the stock is folded, it'll go from 37.1 inches down to 28.7 inches. Now, the barrel length for this weapon in real life is going to be 504 millimeters. That equates to 15.9 inches. Cartridge, as we said, is a 545x39. This weapon was only produced to accept the 545x39. Typically with Russian weapons, we have the 545x39, 762x39, and in some instances, we also have them built for 556x45 NATO. However, this being a special purpose weapon, only was accepting the 545x39mm at the time. The Russians moved really mainly from the 762x39 over to the 545x39 with the AK-74 series, and this was obviously initially intended to replace that. So the action on this is going to be a gas-operated. However, we went into how complex it is. It's a little bit more complex than that. The rate of fire in real life for the 2-round burst is going to be 1,800 rounds per minute, and again, it seems to be around that end game. And you'll see, you would have noticed when I'm tap firing them for the recoil test, you can't even tap fire to get this thing to go as fast as it can go. If you had the fastest trigger finger in the world, you might be able to get it, but there's a special rhythm to get this thing to go at 1,800 rounds per minute. But regardless, it's going to be firing very fast if you have a good trigger finger. Now, in full auto, it'll be 600 rounds per minute. Muzzle velocity is going to be 900 meters per second, or 2,953 feet per second. The effective range will be 700 meters, and the feed system is going to be that 30-round, 45-round, or even a 60-round casket mag of the 545 by 39mm Russian cartridge. And the sight picture, again, has the iron sights. It has very unique iron sights, which I didn't really show here, but I might go back and edit this. So if I did show them, I went back and edited it. But they are very unique sight pictures, which, again, are also canted mounted, and they're adjustable for different ranges, which is pretty cool. And adjustable up to 700 meters, or, yeah, 700 meters, which is the effective firing range. As well as you have that, on the left-hand side, you have the dovetail mount for optics, which we obviously have one mounted here. So that's the AN-94, the Avtomat Nikonov model of 1994. Let me know what you guys think of this weapon down below. Now, one thing that I thought was really interesting is when you keep this thing in full auto, you may have not noticed it in the recoil test because I didn't really walk you guys through that. But when it's in full auto, the first 2 rounds do appear to have that hyperburst option to fire them the first 2 rounds in full auto at the felt recoil of 1, and then after that it'll go into a regular firing mode of 600 rounds per minute at fully auto, which is exactly how it works in real life. So if you're in full auto, those first 2 rounds should still come out directly on target and with the felt recoil of 1 shot before the weapon transitions into typical 600 rounds per minute fully automatic fire of 545 by 39mm. Now, one interesting thing here is I'm curious, I'm almost about to unlock, I'm about 6,000 points away of XP for the AC-42, and I'm curious, that weapon appears to also be a very similar design to the AN-94, that being a 3-round burst option with the felt recoil of 1 round is what it appears to be. Now, I haven't got my hands on it yet to be quite sure, but it appears like that's what the weapon is. So it essentially looks like the AC-42 is a futuristic version of the AN-94, which is reworked to a bullpup configuration, which I guess speaking after we look at the design of this, it may be better off in a bullpup configuration, this rifle. So have to see what that really handles like, if it is basically the same as the AN-94. I have a feeling it will be with that fast burst option. From a lot of the gameplay, those 3 rounds are going to go with the felt recoil of 1. Therefore, you can place 3 rounds right on target, making the AC-42 very, very deadly. And it also appears the AC-42 has a very high rate of fire. I believe in-game it is labeled at something around 1,200 rounds per minute in game. So we'll have to see what that looks like, if it's comparable to the AN-94 and rate of fire if we do the burst mode. So let me know down below what you guys think of the AN-94, the Avtomat Kalashnikov model of 1994. Have you used it in the Battlefield 3 portal? Let me know your thoughts down below. Till next time, this is Buffner Gaming with a little bit in-depth with Battlefield 3 portal weapons for Battlefield 2042. Till next time, Buffner Gaming, out.